You ever heard the term life be lifing? Because life be lifing, you know? I mean, you got a lot of things, money problems, financial problems, stress, relationships, work. And then you go through these seasons where, you feel like that you're doing everything right. But somehow you feel like you're still losing for some reason. Like everything's staying still. It's a lot of things, something may happen, and then you get the snowball effect, right? Then another thing happens, then another thing happens, right? You may lose your job, your car breaks down, rent coming up, your kid's sick, everything comes at once, right? So it's like, man, how do you actually deal with these things? Life be life. You gotta make it to where, yeah, so life doesn't always move on your time. You can have, it doesn't always go according to plan. You can have so many things planned, but you could stay focused, you could stay motivated, you can stay disciplined, you can do everything right. But guess what life does? It blindsides you. It smacks you right in the face. It smacks you right in the face. Mike Tyson says everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. What will your plan be then? Because most definitely you can get knocked off of your pivot. So what will you do to make sure it doesn't happen again? And what will you do when it does happen? How will you respond? Right? I think it's all about how we respond to things. Right? So, adulting is realizing that no one's coming to save you. And you know what? It's like growing up, like when you first get into the adulting world, your 20s, early 20s, mid 20s, and you just feel like everything's not fair. You feel like, man, I gotta find a way out because and that's where your mindset goes. Like, I gotta find a way out. I can't do this forever. But either you make it out, either you're lucky, or you find a big break. I mean, you find a big break, or you don't get lucky and you don't make it out for the next 10, 15 years. You try to find ways to make it out of the matrix because you feel that the working world isn't fair at all. The working world, or just being disciplined and experience repetition from the day-to-day basis, doing the same things, same routine, it could be a bit redundant. And coming from that transition that I was talking about in the other video, when you're 18 years old and you're just living a life, you don't have to pay any bills, you have a car, you're out all times of the night, you're here from, you're going from spot to spot, and you're probably renting rooms at hotels, and dealing with the opposite sex, and life is kind of fast for you. You're drinking, you're smoking, you're doing what you do, and life is very fast. So then when you have to slow down, it's like, what am I doing here? Now you have to be very disciplined, and life becomes very redundant. You're not the old self that you used to be. You're not doing the same things that you used to do with your old crew, your old friends. And now you have to become more disciplined. Life slows down because you have to take care of yourself now. You have to know, what do you have to do for yourself, and bills they come a mile a minute. They pile on top of your head, and it's a monthly thing. So you have to maintain that lifestyle. You have to maintain the most minimum of lifestyles is just paying rent and phone bill, food, gas, car payment, right? If you have kids, I mean, come on, they need extracurricular activities, they need clothes, they need food. You gotta pay light bill, electric, gas, cable. I mean, the list goes on, and things become a bit overwhelming. And it's like with the people I grew up with, and I lived a fast life with. It's like now, I mean, I believe from the background that I've came from, seeing my dad go to work every day and him just building something for his family, putting us in a nice house in a nice neighborhood, right? And just building that, and two-parent household, and where I came from, I did slip outside of the cracks of the nice neighborhood. I went down to the bad parts, to the hood, as they say. I got in with the wrong crowd. It's like their outlook on life, you know, I would say, so I was living the fast life from, let's say, 18 to 22 or something like that. Just out and about, just doing everything just so fast. Oh, let's go here. Oh, what's your name? Oh, somebody called us. Oh, let's go here. Let's do this. Let's do that. Selling drugs and just hanging out. It's not like we confined to one spot. We might go to Philly to go to the club that night, or go to a girl's house, or we had our own hangout spot. It's just so many places that we occupy, in a day. Like I said, we weren't confined to one spot, so life is moving very, very fast, and we're doing things on our own terms. So it's like, okay, at some point, because of the foundation, at some point, I forgot, at some point with the foundation that I came from, I realized that, I'm going to have to make it on my own out here. Selling drugs isn't working. It's just penny pinching and nickel and diamond. But my friends, or the crew that I hung out with at the time, it's like they couldn't even fathom getting a job. Like it's like after 22, look, I go back to my roots, right? After 22, I'm back. I know, like I said, the foundation I came from, but other people don't have that foundation, so they stay like that in a I don't know what I say, a childlike state, or second childhood, as Nas said. They're not looking at getting a job. They're still trying to sell drugs at 25, 26, 27, 20, 29, 30. It's like a job is really non-existent to them. Like, it's not even in their peripheral. It's like, what is a job, right? Like, I live life on my own terms. I'm going to sell drugs. I don't care if I get locked up. I don't care if I got beef out in the streets, or any other source. It's like you just don't care. You don't care if you're living off of a woman, or it's just not really. I don't want to say manly shit, but you're still in the childlike state. You're still running away from being a responsible man, and having your own. So, people still live with their parents, and, just really freeloading and just doing, just staying how you were when you were 18. Now you're in your second childhood. But me, I couldn't stay like that, because I know is more out there, and I was going to try and get it. But, some things don't always work as according to plan. And I've tried so many things and businesses, and um they have failed. And the most successful thing that happened was Etsy. I was able to make an income from the internet, and I did not have to go to work. I felt like I succeeded. I felt like I was successful, even though I was only making $4,000 to $5,000 a month, which is more than I ever made at a job at that time. So I really, really felt that I was successful. And I really felt like I have done something with my life. But, some people look down on it. They're saying it's not a real job. And, okay, that's cool. Everything's all right. I had to pivot once I I had to pivot once I got knocked off. Yeah, I mean I had to pivot. Once I got knocked off of the platform, I had to figure out what am I gonna do next? It's like I told my wife, I said if I didn't, because we know people who refuse to get a job and you would just try to find any hustle out here to try to make a dollar. And I told my wife, listen, man, I'm not that lazy to not go and get a job. If I don't have this business, because, I was so accustomed with that business for 4 years that I'm like, man, F a job, man. I'm not going back to no job. I mean, in my mind, subconsciously, right? But I'm like, if I don't have this business, I'm going back to work. I'm not going to find, if I didn't have the business, I'm not going to try and find another way to make money without a job, you know? I'm not going to try to in the process of me trying to find another way without a job, I'm just not going to have a job, right? I need some income. I'm not going to wing it and then, I have a family to take care of. I have to go get a job. I'm not refusing because I've been so accustomed to working my own job, because you are trading a job for a job. I mean, if it doesn't run, the business doesn't run without you, it's still a job. So, I made my own schedule, did my own hours, and I had that time freedom, right? But it's like I'm not that prideful that I'm not gonna go and get a job, you know? And back to what I was talking about my friends, that wasn't in their peripheral. And guess what? Most of them got locked up and most of them got killed, right? Some are still doing time right now to this day. That's just what life is, you know? And just going back, it's just like, okay, you're living the fast life, but now, well, talking from what I've experienced, it's like now you have to be structured, and that's where boredom sets in. Okay, and when you can't move at a fast pace, and you're going from here, there, and there, and now you have to sit down and be bored. I mean, you can't. It's not like you're doing. Your friend circle changes. People drop off. People die. People go to jail. It's a lot of things, and then your circle starts to shift because now it's like, okay, you're not on the same wavelength that I'm on. You're still trying to be in the streets, and you're still not trying to be a stand-up, responsible man. So we're not on the same wavelength. You're still trying to do the same things, and that's not cool. It's like, now what do we have in common, and how are we going to grow? I heard 50 Cent say, you only get as far as the people you talk to for no reason. And I get that. I get that. Like, what information can you give me? How could you help me? I mean, we can exchange information. I could give you information, but can you give me some information? Can we help each other? I can't just be helping you, you know. So now, going from the fast life to going to work every day for 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours, you know, and not really just having much room for a life after work. I mean, you got your weekends, okay, but then that's all that's given to you, really, is your weekends. What are you going to do on those weekends? Oh, just, we smoke, drink, and hang out. And we're not actually growing once you look at the reality of things. We're not actually growing. We're not actually doing anything. No. Like I said, the redundancy. That is what made me very anxious. And it started to cause a lot of anxiety. Um, a lot of anxiety. To where I had to seek out other sources to calm me down. Because my natural self is a busybody. My natural self is a busybody. Like I'm active, very, very active. But since, you know, I wasn't around these people, the crew that I grew up with, and I wasn't moving at a fast pace anymore. And I had to get acclimated with, being still, boredom, right? I had to get acclimated with that. So I had to seek out other ways to calm me down dramatically. I hate being dependent on things. And you just get acclimated, you know. And so on top of being bored and boredom and being still, because now you're adapting to a new way of life. Friends have dropped off. You go into work every day, and then you start to build some type of structure, a family structure. You find a significant other. You guys make kids, have kids, and now you're not the same person anymore. So you have boredom, and then you got life. Life be life. And I'm talking about as far as like the boredom part. I keep myself busy. It's not like how it was. So you have the boredom part, then you have the life be life part. Like I said, something may go wrong at your job. You hate your job. You know, this is a source of income that your only source of income. Your credit's bad. Bills are piling on your head. You're late on bills. You know, you may not have a car. You got to save up for that. Um, I mean, everything. I mean, you could be grateful, most definitely, because it always could be worse. But when you just look at the grand scheme of things and the way that the world is set up and designed, sometimes you can't ignore the matrix that you're in. And it pops right at you. It's really how you react and how you respond and how you pivot. And you got to do the spin move on them problems, and you got to keep going, and you got to keep climbing until you get to the top of the mountain. And one day I believe you'll get there. You just got to be patient, and you got to keep being disciplined. All right, man. J2 to 900 is the growth hub, man. Drop it in the comments. What are some problems that you go through in your life? All right, see you on the next video. Peace.